We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And we hope that you enjoyed, what was it, Memorial Day on yesterday, right? That's that day that we all have off to celebrate and honor those who have served this country and served it well. Hopefully you had a nice opportunity to be with family, eat some food, but we're now back into the swing of things, and we're starting another great week off with another great episode. So we just want to say thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, we also want to welcome everybody and say make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Ding, you heard that, which means I need to turn off my notification bell here. But make sure you do that every time you come on so that you continue to get notifications when our show comes on. And also, don't forget to tell us who you are and where you're tuning in from so we can acknowledge you on the second half of the break.
That's right.
We got a lot of hot topics to talk about today, don't we?
Today is marriage in the news. There's
Yay.
lots and lots and lots to talk about, so we might as well jump right into the conversation. Number one, in the state of Ohio, they're seeking to pass a law that would prevent spouses from being able to legally rape, sodomize, abuse physically, emotionally their spouse, because in that particular state, anything can go down in a marriage. And a spouse who is abused doesn't have the right to sue or seek any type of legal protection from their spouse when things go down.
Wow, I think, whoa. First of all, I didn't know that was even a thing, that if your spouse raped you, you wouldn't get in trouble. I know so many people who have called the police on their spouse because of fighting, right? And they'll get arrested.
Right,
so it seems,
like domestic violence, right?
Right, so it seems like this would be a non-issue, but I do see a problem because abuse can happen on both sides. Because, sometimes women get into the whole "I'll call the police on you" threat to keep somebody in control, right? And so, you could call the police on your spouse. I mean, I know it goes both ways, but I can call the police on you and say, "Hey, he hit me."
That's true,
right? And there's no evidence that you hit me. So how much worse would it be if I called the police on you and said you raped me?
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Where's the proof on that?
Well, first of all, rape cases are very hard to prove.
Anyway, they
so
really
many people
are.
who do get raped, the perpetrator gets off because I guess there's no semen evidence. It doesn't appear to be any break in the, But the point is, how do you prove that?
Right.
It's probably very difficult to prove it.
It is difficult
but that's
to
why
prove.
you need, great attorneys if it is happening. So, to your point, there's certain people who take advantage of laws like this, and then there are other people who absolutely need laws like this, because some people are in abusive relationships and stay. Now, maybe I didn't ball up a fist and punch you in your throat, but if I demand and command...
You better not.
All right? But if I demand and command that you serve me, right? And maybe there's some issue in the relationship and you don't want to, and I force your hand, right? And I engage, and I've been doing it, and I'm psychologically manipulating you and then physically taking advantage of you.
That's how I feel like it could become a slippery slope. That's probably why every state has not passed this law where you can, effectively charge your spouse with rape. Because it can become a slippery slope. Now, there are people who are in abusive relationships, and there are laws to protect that in general. I mean, there are laws, there are restraining orders, there are lots of things that you could do as an abused spouse to get away from your spouse if you need to, right? I think it's I don't know. I feel like it's a slippery slope because the way that you explained it, right? Maybe you didn't punch me in my face, but you are manipulating me and making me. How does a judge... how does a judge really try that case? He manipulated me and made me do it, right?
See, I can't
There are
give
things you
you
could have done long before the manipulation to get away from your spouse if you're in that level of spousal abuse.
And that's why Couples Academy exists, to come to us before, it even gets to that point where, you're in a court of law trying to protect yourself supposedly from your spouse. But I mean, all I do know is that there are people who know how to work the system and take
Right.
advantage because they're not in a good space with their spouse, and
Yeah.
then there's other people who
Right.
actually need
And I'm
it.
wondering if this is coming up in the
Yeah.
news because there's been more cases and it's necessary to begin to do something with this, because you might find a lot of spouses are coming in and saying that they're being raped by their spouse.
Think about the pandemic.
And not every time do you resist, too. That's another thing. I mean, people will tell you techniques to survive rape is don't resist, right? So even harder to prove because you're not resisting a
Wow.
rape, right? So, and men also get raped. I mean, there's just, this thing goes,
This is true.
It's just deep. It's just hard to really figure out how you would manage this type of a situation.
Yeah, guys, I mean, whatever your thoughts are
What are your
weighing in, that's what
thoughts?
this is about. But there's another great article I definitely want to jump into. It's really, listen, the history of marriage has shifted and changed over the last couple of years, decades, and certainly over the century.
Yeah.
And the reasons that people got married years ago are completely different than the reasons to get married today. Now, when you think about millennial marriage, it looks very different. We're noticing, now listen, this has always been an issue, but now it's a major problem where millennials are getting married much less. However, the cohabitation rate is skyrocketing. And so people are deciding to move in together for, say, a few years, thinking that the next logical step is marriage. But interestingly enough, it sabotages, in many cases, one's willingness to want to get married because it is an alternative form of commitment. So in essence, you're living a married life, if you will,
Yeah.
without the legality, without the understanding and the level of commitment that's necessary for that type of relationship. And it diminishes one's willingness to want to actually tie the knot. So many more people are breaking up and never getting married because they're cohabitating first.
Right. Well, the article was in Pure View, and the writer basically was comparing millennials with baby boomers and saying that one of the things that they have in common is when they get married, they marry till death do us part. They have that mindset. They want to be married till the end. At the same time, one of the biggest trends that they would like to see end is cohabitating before marriage, because of the fact that actually you're getting into a commitment with no commitment. And you discover all of, this is the thing about marriage, right? I was thinking about this the other day because I was like, you know what? I want to do a podcast. The wives need to speak out. It's going to be Wifey Knows Best, right? And I was just like,
About
one
what?
of the things, everything. One of the things that we don't talk about is marriage for real. We don't talk about marriage. We talk about the wedding. We talk about planning this big event
This is
and
true.
walking down the aisle, and you're the centerpiece of the day, and it's all eyes on you, and the honeymoon and how romantic and sex, and that's what we talk about. We don't talk about the role of being a husband and of being a wife. So when you step into a non-committed relationship with somebody and you move in together, you have put the cart before the horse, and now you jump right into the thick and dirty of it before there's a commitment. And that's why you're seeing a lot of failure and people bailing, because they don't want that level
Yeah.
of commitment, and they realize it's really hard. Once you've gone down the road and you've put the big investment of a wedding, that's a big investment to just toss
Yeah,
away.
absolutely.
It kind of motivates you. All right, let's see if we can work this thing out. We put a lot into this wedding. But when you didn't do that and you just jump right into living together, oftentimes it can be
Yeah.
very difficult.
Absolutely. We have a couple comments from the previous article that we were talking about. Number one, Bryant Michael says, I'm in law enforcement, and marital rape is the hardest thing to prove. In my decade in the field, I may have seen one conviction. You know, it would be great to have like a legal expert or someone in law enforcement to kind of talk through some of these issues
Maddie, turn my mic
to
up a
get
little
the
bit.
inner workings of what this looks like
Right.
and what these cases typically, like when they deal with it. You know, one conviction
Wow.
in his entire career, bring it up. Yeah, that's a problem.
Wow.
And so, man, maybe this is a topic that we can look further into.
maybe this is a real serious problem, and why they have to create new legislation and laws around it, because it's so difficult to prove. Could that be why it's a hot
Yeah.
topic? Yeah.
Kia says, yes, everything is surrounded around pomp and circumstance and not the seriousness
Yes.
of the covenant.
Exactly.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying
Right,
about
because,
marriage.
because it's so weighty. I talk about this all the time in my lady circles, wife circles, okay? We talk about this. We talk about our roles. We talk about what our responsibilities are and what our husband's responsibilities are. And a lot of times we're dropping the ball on these things. But when you jump right into living together, You literally, by virtue of being in the same space, start to take on those roles because they're innate. It's not like I ever went to wife school. Did you ever go to husband school?
No.
Right. So when you move in together, suddenly you turn on. Like you start doing your role. It's inside you. You just know what to do in most cases.
Wife
right?
school.
Ooh, there isn't such a
Husband
thing, by the
school.
way.
Is there?
Yes.
Okay, we
It's
just haven't
very
been to it.
interesting. I don't think I would sign up.
Jaguar Rose says rape and physical abuse should be illegal and there should be penalties. If you violate your spouse without a written law, there is no recourse for victims. This is true because there are people who are victimized. If the existence of the law that makes the act a crime, it is the existence of a law that provides protection. This is a great topic, and many people are weighing in on this particular thing. Listen, you're watching the Couples Academy show. We have a few more topics that come up that are really, really, really interesting. We want you to tune in as soon as you hear it, and let's be a part of this conversation. Be right back.
Couples Academy is expanding its team to meet the growing demand of people in need of help around the world. So if you're a trained, licensed, or certified expert in marriage enrichment, infidelity recovery, sex therapy, life coaching, cognitive behavioral therapy, divorce mediation, financial coaching, or family therapy, contact us today.
Hey guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show, and I just want to welcome some people. Good morning, Kia. Thank you for that notification. We turned our mics up, so thank you. Robert, good morning. Brandon, Tisha, Dietrich, 007, Torre, Jaguar, Ralph, Angel, Ralph again, Hubert, Gigi, Geisha, Brian, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm going to get us right back into the topic because it's juicy and people have a lot of comments to say about these two topics here. The rape issue and also just jumping into marriage or living together before you get married.
Yeah. And see, the thing is, whether you're a millennial or not, we're not trying to pick on millennials, but the point is when you get...
And baby boomers, they said.
Hey, the point is when you just move in, and a lot of times when we're working with couples who are now married, I always ask the question, well, how long were you together before you got married? Oh, we were together for about, 2-3 years. I said, well, how soon did you move in? Or did you live together? Yes. Well, how soon did you move in after you met each other? Oh, about 2-3 months. And so what happens is your relationship didn't go through a natural progression that it needed to without either sex or the married lifestyle within the confines of your relationship. And so this is where we experience relational developmental lag, where it didn't have the proper amount of time and to develop. And so things are missed, steps are skipped over, and certain conversations are not had. And what we're finding is that millennials who are moving in together because they love and want to be around their partner aren't having real conversations about well, do we want to have kids? And if so, how many? What is your plan, like in terms of career? Where would you want to live? What do you think about traditional values? What about faith? They're not having these conversations. They're focusing more on companionship and not understanding partnership. And whenever you move into a household together, it leans heavy in the partnership space. And because those skills haven't been developed, these relationships begin to fall apart.
Yeah, here's a comment from Lakeisha. She says, 23 years later, just realized we really never discussed and understood our roles. Focused on the marriage ceremony, not the marriage. Plus, we only knew each other 3 months before we got married.
See that?
I needed that wife school and still do.
Now, check this out. I know people who literally have dated for 6 months, got married, and they were married for 40 plus years. So it can happen. But what we're saying is when you slow it down and you take the time to really get to know you're building a healthy foundation. And to your point, many of us don't know how to be husbands and wives, and that's why we need this continuing education.
Heather has a comment. She says, I would never live with someone before marriage again. Getting the milk for free is not a myth. 10 years in and no marriage, no things.
Wow.
It was actually a blessing in disguise, according to my lawyer. It saved me a small fortune, but I definitely would not do it again. I would do pre-marriage counseling and make sure we were both fully prepared and committed spiritually, emotionally, and financially.
Wow. You know, I have a couple, I know a couple who has been living with each other for 17 years. They decided to get married. Finally, they got divorced within a year. Isn't that, I mean, within a year they got divorced. And so I'm like, man, what was going on during that 17-year relationship that sabotaged the potential of a commitment? It seems like they were together for a long time, a lifelong commitment, but something about that marriage just shifted everything for them, and they didn't make it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a serious thing. There's another topic that's brewing. Unless you want to go to some more comments, feel free to do so. But this topic, I think, is going to be meaty. So as we're talking about it, weigh in so we can get your comments. There's this new concept called the platonic marriage, right? The platonic marriage is when people who don't necessarily have any type of romantic interest or sexual desire in each other are getting married and forming these unions with agreements. You know what? I think that you're a great friend. And so platonic marriage is more of a celebration of a deep friendship than any type of romantic interest. And so they're getting married, they're having kids, they're doing life together. And I want us to talk about this because this is very interesting.
I mean, I think we can put this in the category of those newfangled, as my mom used to say. Is fangle a thing? I got to Google fangle, but y'all know what I mean. If you got a mama who, y'all know. Okay, a newfangled marriage, right? Because now you have to define new terms. Unless there is this possibility that you can conjure up a relationship and a connection, right? But it sounds like, no, this is straight platonic, and we're going to go into marriage partnership so that we could do life together and have all the luxuries of a wife and a husband, but not have the sexual part of it.
Or the romantic interest. Or any.
Right.
And for me, I mean, you may have a different opinion. I just think, first of all, if you have first of all, it's redefining or creating an alternative to the traditional form of marriage, and fine. You may say, well, you know what, tradition is gone. Well, there's certain traditions I think that are good to hold on to. So, as a believer who believes in traditional biblical marriage between a husband and a wife, there is partnership, but there's companionship. And in the space of companionship, there's desirability. Now, if we decide to just be friends, we were deep friends for a long time, and hey, why don't we just go get married and go half on kids and go half on bills and this and the other? Well, now we're in a marriage, a vow, a covenant.
Yeah.
There's certain laws and principles and rules and values that go along with that. But you know what? I'm just not feeling you. So I'm going to go decide to connect emotionally with somebody else. Is that permissible? Is that okay? We're finding that people who are in platonic relationships are creating their own rules for what works for them.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think it's a question of is it permissible or okay. I think that in the long run, will it work? Will you be satisfied? Can you hold on? Because there is that, that ownership that takes place when you can call somebody wife or husband. Like, there are certain responsibilities that are expected that you handle within this marriage. And so if you're spending your time elsewhere, it just seems like it might be a strain. However, there are instances where I could see that it would work. Like if there were a couple that has, erectile dysfunction or something like that, and they had been friends for a long time. Maybe that makes sense for you to come together because sex isn't even on the table for you. What? That's the thing, Hassani.
Wait a minute.
Sometimes.
Let's start from scratch.
Yeah,
so
I can see how.
We're friends.
I could see,
We're not married.
We're friends. We're not
I
married.
have erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, I know your
don't,
story.
right?
I know your story. Listen, I have clients right now who will tell me, listen, sex is not even an issue for me. I'm good. I don't ever need it. That's the case for many women. They're good. That's not their motivation, especially depending on what season you are in your life. Later on in life, a lot of times couples actually decide, can we just be done with this sex thing? We good now? And so then erectile dysfunction is a part of some cycles of life for people. So
Okay.
I'm just saying later on down the line, I can see two friends coming together for the partnership, not wanting to be alone, not wanting to grow old alone, and having that friendship partnership where sex isn't on the table. I can see that making sense in certain instances.
Well,
is what I'm
beyond
saying.
that, beyond the physical act of sex, we're talking about companionship and emotional connection,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what forms
And that's what you have
a
with friends, right?
long-lasting. Well, but that's true.
Right.
I mean, we
I
can
love
be
my friend. I love my friend. I could talk to you about anything. I have everything with you. The only thing that I don't have with you is that sexual
But see, but
intimacy.
that's the one thing that separates marriage from every other relationship
Yeah.
on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Just that, an
Right.
emotional, sexual connection and desire. And if you never had it in your relationship and you made a decision, this is just who we are. Well, what happens when something happens within you where there's a desire that's now brewing and now you're going to seek someone outside of your relationship because you can't find it within your relationship? And that's why Couples Academy exists, because
Right.
that happens.
It does.
Forget the platonic marriage. That just happens, period, in
That's
marriage.
what I was gonna say. Like, it does it matter? Does it matter what type of marriage you're in?
Yes,
If you,
it does.
Hold on. Let me go. Let me get my point out. Does it matter what type of marriage you're in if you are somebody who does not have principles, right? Because you can lie in a regular, loving, committed marriage where you have intimacy and everything else, or in a platonic friendship marriage. If you're a liar and dishonest, you're gonna be a liar and dishonest.
Well,
I
that's
think
true.
because
That's true.
Isn't that why we're
That's
in business?
true.
Because we're dealing with a lot of supposedly normal couples that would be doing it and should be doing it well, but that came to us because they did not feel safe sharing that they had other interests outside of the bedroom.
Right, so I don't know that a platonic marriage is the solution to that.
I don't know
to
that
me,
either. I
it's
agree.
like it's listen, the origin of a thing determines its nature.
True.
And if the foundation of your relationship is there's just no interest here,
Yeah.
then that's what I'm saying. Am I going to secretly go off and get needs met, or are we having a real conversation?
Right,
Because
and I
even
think
people
that would be important.
even people who are in open marriages, even they lie.
Yes.
Even they sneak, even
Right.
they creep.
Right.
And they come to us to save their marriage because they had these rules that weren't honored. And so we see a high percentage of people who are in those type of
I
relationships
agree
that
with
don't
you
work.
100%, and I think that's the point, right? We just talked about 3 or 4 different types of relationships out here, and they all lie. So I don't know if it's the type of relationship or is it the people in it.
I think it's a combination of it all. Because listen, if God established that marriage is supposed to be a particular type of way, I mean, listen, if
I
you're a
go with
person
the
of
book.
faith, if you're a person of faith, then you got to submit yourself to a system that was created before you that has proven itself to work. There's nothing wrong with marriage. What's the problem is people, right?
Period.
People who are not willing to conform to a system that has been designed to work. Because it's worked from the very beginning if you work it. Anyway, this is a great
Yeah,
conversation.
this is good.
We want to hear from you. What do you think? We got one more segment. We want to engage you in the conversation. You're watching the Couples Academy Show. Be right back.
Couples Academy is expanding its team to meet the growing demand of people in need of help around the world. So if you're a trained, licensed, or certified expert in marriage enrichment, infidelity recovery, sex therapy, life coaching, cognitive behavioral therapy, divorce mediation, financial coaching, or family therapy, contact us today.
Welcome back, everybody. You are watching the Couples Academy Show. Can we jump into some of these comments because I think we're stirring the pot a little bit. Kid, listen, I knew somebody was with me on the newfangled, right? Sometimes, I'm like, am I from another planet? Newfangled. We know what that means. It's a newfangled marriage. But here's a comment from Jaguar saying, platonic marriage sounds like arranged marriages in cultures where spouses are chosen for you by parents. We talked about this earlier. For thousands of years, people married partners they barely knew based on culture and tradition. And you know what? We talked about that earlier. I said, I could see, first of all, that ain't for me. That ain't for us. We don't know nothing about that. But we did have an intern that was exactly the situation. She was betrothed to someone that she did not know for financial reasons and however they do it, Indian culture, and she was not with it. But I just recently checked up on her and they seem happy and doing well. So I do think relationship and intimacy can cultivate, but that's not what this is. This is two people deciding to go into a platonic marriage. There will be no intimacy, there will be no sexual connection, there'll be none of that.
Yeah.
We are friends and we are married for the marriage benefits, which is interesting because I recently read another article that talked about how laws are being passed because of the LGBTQ movement and all these things. The rules around marriage has changed to accommodate people regardless of sex who want to be together can benefit from the same, benefits, taxes, insurance, and all of that stuff as anybody else now. So I don't know what's the benefit of it.
And so it's funny you mention that because when you're dealing with this new type of marriage, this platonic marriage, it's a pathway for people who are not just, male, female, heterosexual relationships. To your point, gay and lesbian, even pansexuals. A pansexual is a person who has a desire for anything and everyone outside of the marriage. And so this is what I'm saying. These new types of marriages are accommodating all of these alternative lifestyles and desires. And so it's interesting what's happening in the world. But, going back to the whole arranged marriage, I think the difference is you may not know that person who you're getting married to. It's arranged, right? Versus platonic, that person have a deep friendship. So it's slightly different.
I want to jump into this comment here. Kia says, sure, there can be new marriage types. They just aren't God's. But why borrow from God's creation to build your own? That's called a bidder.
A biter.
Oh, a biter.
Yeah.
LOL. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that. I feel you, Kia, 1,000%. Yeah.
It isn't. It isn't God's, and that's the point. Like, we get on these discussions, and the thing is we're not. It's not like we're talking about what's right or wrong. It's what is, right? We're talking about what's happening. People are actually choosing this for their lives, and so we're saying, does this work? And we're seeing that it doesn't work. A lot of people come through the doors because they thought, for example, an open relationship would work. And it doesn't, because at the end of the day, even though you make actual commitments to open your marriage, still you have an ownership and you want rules to be fulfilled, and they are broken, and you can't really handle the heat once it happens. So I can see how when somebody comes together and they're just friends, to your point, how somebody might say, I really want more with somebody. Let me go see. But are you open and honest about it? I mean, you were open and honest about coming together to be friends and get married. Why not be open and honest to say, hey, we're not having any sex or anything like that. I'm really having some desires here that I want to explore. That's something that is missing.
All I'm saying is that sex is designed for those in a covenant relationship called marriage. There shouldn't be sex before marriage, that's fornication. There shouldn't be sex outside of marriage, that's infidelity. There should be sex within a marriage. And if you're getting married and already deciding, we're not having that, we're not doing that, then what are you getting legally married for? What are you doing? Matter of fact, why get married? I guess you're getting married for legal benefit. Okay,
the
fine.
Benefits.
That's the civil union and all of that.
The benefits.
But all I'm simply saying is, when you have a foundation that you submit yourself to, that's the key. You got to submit yourself to a foundation that works. It can work for you. I just think it becomes a slippery slope in many regards.
Got a comment here from Diedrich. It says, as a man, it depends on what you believe in. I'm going with the Bible. I want a traditional marriage. I just had to learn how to serve instead wanting to be served. Amen to that.
This is a fascinating conversation that could really take us in so many different directions. But at the end of the day, the question is, what do you believe? This is why it's important to have working operational definitions and a shared value system with your partner. And you have to have these long-term questions. Okay, if we're getting married, what happens in this scenario? What happens in that scenario? Yeah. If you feel this type of way, that type of way, what are we going to do about it? Think about if you've ever been in the military, for those of you who are, they run drills all the time, you know, thinking through every potential scenario and training for every single scenario. And so likewise, as couples in a marriage, you should be talking about the potential scenarios of what will happen and how you respond to it to make sure that you as a couple are on the same page.
Yeah, I just want to read a couple comments. Clinton, first of all, no, I did not get your question, so please resend your question, or you could have just posted it in here and we would see it live. Brandon says, I struggle with my role in my marriage. I know I need to be a better husband. What's small steps to take? Well, this is the Couples Academy show. You tuning in every day and watching the Couples Academy show would help you to take those steps, put those things in place. That's what I would say.
And I will say, we have coming up this summer, we haven't announced it yet, but when Danielle mentioned wife class, a husband class, or whatever it was, we are doing a master class on how to be a husband and how to be a wife. It's going to be a 4 to 5 hour deep dive and mini intensive that's going to give you everything you need to know to show up the right way in your relationship.
It's just about using the tools,
Absolutely.
doing the thing. Absolutely.
Guys, was this helpful? Did you enjoy this conversation?
I enjoyed the conversation. Did you enjoy the conversation?
I enjoyed it.
Y'all were talking today. We like that.
You know, you watch news every single day and all types of things are happening, but do you ever really pay attention to marriage news? And we're going to make a commitment to bringing this information to you on a weekly basis to bring you up to speed so you know how to live and navigate in this world. Well, you've been watching the Couples Academy show. We will see you in the morning for another great episode. We appreciate you all. And just know we are growing our team. So if you're a licensed professional, a coach, a certified sex expert, anyone who has worked with couples and wants to be a part of a team that makes impact around the world, make sure you reach out to us at hpetterford@gmail.com or simply go to couplesacademy.org so that we can engage in a conversation with you. Love you guys. See you in the morning. Take care.
Bye.